In apartment number 10, 29 girls were having a tea party. They were dressed in their Sunday best, bright silk dresses, velvet ribbons, and polished shoes. They sat on the sofa, propped up against bookshelves, and tucked into beds. Their faces were covered in rosy wax masks, their eyes made of glass and buttons. If you walked past the door, you might hear the faint, synchronized tinkling of 29 music boxes playing lullabies. To a casual observer, it was a strange, obsessive collection of antique dolls. To the man who lived there, it was a family. But to the police who raided the apartment in 2011, it was the most concentrated site of desecration in modern history. Because under the silk, the wax, and the lace, there was no plastic. There was only rotting flesh and stolen bones. Anatoly Moskvin was not a thug. He wasn't a common criminal. He was the smartest man in the Russian city of Nizhny Novgorod, a certified genius, a historian who spoke 13 languages, an expert on Celtic culture. People called him a walking encyclopedia. He was respected, published, and quiet. But Anatoly had a secret life that began when he was 13 years old. At a funeral for an 11-year-old girl, he was forced by mourners to kiss the corpse's face. That kiss didn't traumatize him. It woke something up. He became a necrologist. For years, he spent his nights in cemeteries. He visited 752 of them. He studied the dead. He slept on haystacks near fresh graves. He even slept in a coffin once to understand the transition. But eventually, studying the dead wasn't enough. He wanted to own them. Anatoly began to track the obituaries in the local papers. He looked for specific names, specific ages. He wanted girls, children between the ages of 3 and 12. He would attend their funerals, standing at the back, watching the parents collapse in grief as they buried their daughters. He watched them place teddy bears on the fresh mounds of dirt. He watched them leave, and then he would wait for the Russian night to fall. Armed with a shovel and a backpack, Anatoly would return to the grave. In the freezing cold, he would dig through layers of dirt until his shovel struck wood. He would pry open the small coffins, lift the cold, stiff bodies of these children, and wrap them in plastic. He didn't steal their jewelry. He didn't care about their belongings. He wanted the girls. He carried them home in a backpack, walking through the city streets, a genius with a corpse on his shoulders. Inside his cramped 2-bedroom apartment, which he shared with his elderly, oblivious parents, Anatoly turned his bedroom into a laboratory of the grotesque. He didn't just keep the bodies, he mummified them. He used a mixture of salt and baking soda to dry out the decomposing flesh. He wrapped their decaying limbs in strips of fabric, like ancient Egyptian mummies, to keep the bones from falling apart. But he wanted them to look pretty. He crafted wax masks over their sunken, blackened faces. He painted rosy cheeks and bright eyes. He fitted them with blonde wigs. He stuffed their hollowed-out chests with rags to give them a human shape. And then, the final touch, the soul. Anatoly inserted mechanical music boxes inside their ribcage. He rigged them so that when he touched them or moved them, they would play a song. He even kept a collection of dried-out organs in jars, labeling them with the names of the girls so he could give them back later. For nearly a decade, Anatoly lived with 29 dolls. He sat them around the table for tea parties. He celebrated their birthdays with cake. He watched cartoons with them. He talked to them. He told the police later that he was waiting for science to find a way to bring them back to life. He believed his knowledge of Celtic magic and history could eventually resurrect them. His parents claimed they thought these were just large, antique dolls. They lived in the same apartment, smelling the thick, sickeningly sweet stench of chemicals and old meat, yet they never looked under the wax masks. Across the city, dozens of families were visiting empty graves. They were talking to the dirt, bringing flowers to a vacuum, unaware that their daughters were sitting in a madman's bedroom, forced to listen to the mechanical tinkling of a music box. The end came in 2011. Anatoly's parents returned early from their summer cottage. The smell in the apartment had become unbearable. They finally looked closer at the dolls. When the police arrived, they found a wax museum from hell. They found 29 mummified girls. They found how-to manuals on mummification. They found maps of every grave he had robbed. They found a video he had filmed walking through his apartment, showing off his collection like a proud father. In court, Anatoly was unrepentant. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Instead, he attacked the parents. "You abandoned your daughters," he shouted in the courtroom. "You left them in the cold dirt. I brought them home. I gave them warmth. I gave them a family." Anatoly Moskvin was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. He was declared unfit to stand trial and sentenced to a high-security psychiatric hospital. He is still there today. He has never expressed a single ounce of remorse, but the true horror belongs to the survivors. The parents had to endure a trauma that no human mind is designed to handle. They had to watch as investigators dug up the coffins of their children, only to find them empty. They had to go to a morgue to identify the mummified, wax-covered remains of their daughters. They had to bury their children twice. The next time you see an antique doll with a painted face and glass eyes staring back at you, don't look at the dress. Listen. Listen for the sound of a music box, and pray that what's inside is only plastic.